Lane Kiffin has done it again. Ole Miss absolutely dominated the transfer portal this last offseason, and they are now loaded with talent as they prepare to try to make a run to the new 12-team playoff. Ole Miss comes in at number 6 in our way too early top 25. This will be a top 10 team to begin the season, and they have the talent, the coaching staff, and the schedule to maybe make a run and make the college football playoff for the first time in program history. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. We're so glad you could join us today. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below. You want to check out our website, thegridironexpert.com, for tons of exclusive content over there. You want to check out our mailing address to send us some of your team's gear to be represented in every single Gridiron Expert video. The earlier we can start on that collection, the better, so we'll be fully ready to go when the season begins in August. But check it all out, again, down in the description below. We want you to become a member of our GE Nation. So you take a look at Ole Miss, guys. We have them at number 6 in the country to start the year. This is a good football team. Last year, they were a good football team. They won 11 wins had 11 wins for the first time in program history. They won the Peach Bowl over Penn State in pretty dominating fashion. And then you look at the roster. Jackson Dart returns at quarterback. They added Juice Antoine Wells from South Carolina at wide receiver, one of the best wide receivers in the SEC. They dominated on the defensive side of the ball. Walter Nolan transferring in on the defensive line from Texas A&M. Chris Paul transferring in at linebacker from Arkansas, just to name a few transfers. But Ole Miss, what they did was not just landing big-time transfers. They were landing big-time transfers from within their own conference, from their conference rivals, which makes it even more impressive and even better for Ole Miss. But this is a team, guys, that has a very good shot to make the 12-team playoff. Probably would have made the 12-team playoff had it been implemented last year. And now you take a look at their schedule and you realize, wow, missing out might be viewed as a disappointment. Really, that's kind of the way I look at this. Because here's the thing, with the new 12-team playoff, one loss does not derail your season. 2 losses, depending on who you lose to, when you lose, may not derail your season. Margin of victory will play a role as well. So Ole Miss, if they were to go 10-2 in the regular season like they did last year, depending on who those losses were to and when they were, they might still find themselves in that 12-team playoff. So they've got a little bit more wiggle room, and that's the case for all the teams competing for a playoff spot. But you look at that schedule, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, we're not predicting wins and losses today. But I think if you're an Ole Miss fan and you're looking at this, anything less than a 6-0 start would be viewed as a disappointment. I believe that. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I think that would be a disappointment. Furman, Middle Tennessee, Georgia Southern, all those should be relatively easy victories. At Wake Forest in the non-conference, an intriguing game there for sure, but Wake Forest wasn't much of anything last year. Still kind of trying to adjust to life without Sam Hartman. They didn't even have him last year. They struggled. They're going to have to figure a lot of stuff out this year just to get back to postseason play. They get to host Kentucky for their first conference game, and then they go on the road to South Carolina, who is now dealing with life without Spencer Rattler. They're dealing with life without Antoine Wells. They failed to live up to their expectations last year. A pretty disappointing season in Columbia. That's a pretty easy first half of the season. 6 of your 12 games, and they are probably, you would think, would start 6-0. Anything less than that's a disappointment. Their toughest game in that stretch is probably Kentucky, and they're getting to host them in Oxford. So that's massive, massive, massive for the Rebels. Then it gets tough, though. That back half of the schedule is really, really difficult. I mean, if you look at the next couple of games, at LSU, then the bye week, Oklahoma, at Arkansas, Georgia, another bye week, at Florida, and then the Egg Bowl. So the first half of the schedule, 6-0, is what you want. The back half, a little bit more difficult. But I will say that out of those games, the toughest games are LSU, Oklahoma, and Georgia, and 2 of those are at home. So Ole Miss getting a pretty favorable slate across the board here. Oklahoma, first year in the SEC, that game is at home. Georgia, that game is at home. That's big. If Ole Miss can find a way to split those 2 home games and then not slip up anywhere else, they're going to be looking really, really good. And the LSU game, too, is not one that you can afford to really overlook either. I mean, this is an LSU team that nearly took down Ole Miss in Oxford last year. It was one of the best games of the season, especially in SEC play. Ole Miss winning that game 55-49, absolute shootout in Oxford. Now they've got to go to Baton Rouge. They've got to go to Death Valley. Obviously, that's not an easy place to play by any means. But they're adjusting to life without Mike Denbrock. They're now dealing with life without Jaden Daniels. Got a lot of changes happening with Brian Kelly and the Tigers. But back-to-back road games in conference play with South Carolina and then LSU, not ideal. Then the bye week of rest, hosting Oklahoma. They're going to be really good this year. At least that's what we expect. But getting them at home, really, really big. At Arkansas, that's probably the biggest trap game for me, if I'm being quite honest with you. That's a game that screams trap. So we're talking about LSU, Oklahoma, Georgia. Those are the three biggest games. If you can find a way to go 2-1 in those games, it's massive. 1-2 is not the end of the world, but they'd have to win every other game on their schedule, right? So, like, say they lost to LSU, say they lost to Georgia, but they beat Oklahoma. That's great, but you've got to win every other game. And that's why a game like Arkansas is a trap game. That's why a game like Florida in the Swamp is a trap game. Ole Miss has not won in Fayetteville. They've won a couple games in Little Rock, but they have not won in Fayetteville since 2008. And it just seems that every year we have a classic between the Razorbacks and the Rebels. Even as bad as Arkansas was last year, it was a very close game. The Razorbacks led in the fourth quarter. Ole Miss battled back to win 27-20. The year prior, in 2022, the Razorbacks torched Ole Miss in Fayetteville. The year prior was that thrilling, 52-51 game in Oxford. It just always feels like it's a great game between Arkansas and Ole Miss. And that game, to kick off the month of November, playoff tensions, conference title tensions are starting to rise. It's starting to get more intense. If Ole Miss finds themselves an undefeated or a one-loss team at this point, with Georgia on the horizon, overlooking Arkansas in preparation for that home game against Georgia, be mindful. That's all I'm saying. And Ole Miss fans might scoff at that, but you cannot deny how close these games have been between the Rebels and the Razorbacks in recent years. How close they've been, how intense they have been, how relatively even they have been in recent years. You cannot deny that. You cannot afford to overlook them, even though Arkansas is expected and probably will be very bad in 2024. So again, all things considered, guys, I'm looking at this. Very easy first half of the schedule. Their key stretch ranges from October 12th to November 23rd. Or even if you could just break it into half, right? You could do first half, second half. First half of the season, second half of the season. Do that if you want to. LSU, Oklahoma, Georgia, those are the three games that will define the year. 2-1 in those games. Ole Miss is thriving. They are good, and dare I say, probably a lock for the playoff, barring an ultimate collapse against, Arkansas, Florida, Mississippi State, or anybody in the first six, right? Anybody in the first six games. 1-2, not bad. You got to win everything else, because 9-3, that would be viewed as a major disappointment, considering the schedule, considering the talent, considering the expanded playoff. 9-3 probably not going to be good enough to get you in. So if you're Ole Miss, those three games that we mentioned, that's going to define your season. Will the Rebels make the 12-team playoff? All this talent coming back, all this talent added through the portal, an elite coaching staff in the SEC, one of the best staffs from top to bottom in the conference. Will it all pan out, and will the Rebels have their shot at a national championship, or will they fall short? Get a couple months, we'll start to find out. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below. Again, we'd love some Ole Miss swag up here. Get us a helmet, get us a pennant. Let's represent your team. Our mailing address down in the description below, along with our official website, thegridironexpert.com, to help you get through this offseason. Tons of exclusive content over there, guys, because the season never ends here at our channel. So like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification button so you don't miss out on any future videos, including our Ole Miss prediction coming your way here in just a few months. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.